Why, hello there. My name is Mountain, and today I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this, my friends, is the Evergoods Civic Access Sling 2-liter, or CAS2. As the name suggests, this is a fairly small 2-liter rated EDC urban civic intended use sling, although it is also usable as a hip pack, manufactured by Evergoods, the Bozeman, Montana-based manufacturer of some of my favorite bags in the game these days. Now, I just recently reviewed an Evergoods bag, the PLC 20, and while I wasn't intending to review 2 Evergoods bags in a row, people voted on a poll that I did on my channel that this is what you wanted to see, so here you go. Let it not be said that Mountain does not hear the will of the people. Now, the Civic Access Sling's main claim to fame is probably that it is this very small, compact, easy to carry sling with good interesting combination of like a main organization capacity and fairly good internal organization in theory, though in use we'll talk about that, that features the same great build quality and materials such as this great 3D mesh back panel of the Evergoods' own creation that combines some of the best features of the recent Mountain Hip Pack 3.5 release. You can see obviously a lot of the same aesthetic elements here and also some of the internal organization style and materials or I guess execution of last year's Civic Access Pouch 1 or Cap 1 pouch. I will also note that this is the rare sling that can actually be worn fairly comfortably and functionally as a hip pack, although I'm not going to demonstrate that for you on camera because I have a cool fashionable denim apron wearing mystique to maintain. Now, that said, this bag has a number of notable shortcomings in my opinion. First of all, I found it was actually fairly tight overall. There are definitely other bags out there that do a lot more with 2 liters than this one does. I also found that it was a little bit less refined in some areas than I usually expect from Evergoods because I have pretty high expectations for them. So obviously this, a lot has been written on the internet about the bizarrely missing strap keepers. I also found this strap to be both somehow simultaneously too short and also super dangly, which is a weird place to be in life. The interior EDC pockets, that's going to be these back here, are better in my opinion for civic or urban intended use than on the Mountain Hip Pack 3.5. However, I still found them a little bit tight and fiddly in some places, but more than I expected, right? They weren't as useful as I've seen in many other competitor bags. And finally, I found that there were some common use cases when I had this bag slung, and worn on the body I was trying to get into that I found it just a little bit harder to get things in and out of, even though it was easy to open and close the bag itself. Now, it's currently available in one color, that's going to be black, and it's at the time of this recording, and retails for $99 on the Evergoods US website. So next, let's talk about who this bag is for and who it's not for. Now, it's going to be for fans of Evergoods, especially those who like the Mountain Hip Pack 3.5 or the Civic Access Pouch 1, and who want a sling that's a little bit smaller than the Mountain Hip Pack 3.5. We'll do again a quick size comparison here so you can sort of see side by side or maybe top. Definitely you can see the much larger size difference here of the 3.5 versus the 2. You want something just a little bit smaller than that, a little bit more intended for like urban or kind of civic type use here. Now, another group of people who I think this might be okay for, it's going to be people with tightly dialed minimalist EDC setups. So this is a fairly there's a camera in there, so not that minimalist. Slightly more than Pockets Plus, probably don't have like a big bulky wallet or a gigantic phone, for example. And you're just looking for something a little bit better than Pockets Plus or a small sling to hold, just your little daily, whatever, EDC type goods here. It's also going to be, in my opinion, a decent small sling for folks who are kind of one bag traveling. This bag does kind of wear, fairly close to the body depending on your chest size. And I kind of found like its small size was handy for like cramming in a seat next to me, but always having with me. And then kind of having it in the front of my body while I have like my big one bag travel backpack on the back here. And it obviously pairs well with something like the Evergoods Civic Travel Bag that I reviewed a few months ago on the channel. And finally, people who want a sling that could truly work like a small hip pack. I'm not going to demonstrate this on camera because I'm a cool guy, but it's fairly comfortable as a hip pack, albeit with terribly dangly straps. Now, I don't think this is going to be a good sling for anybody with like a bigger chest, and I'll talk about that in the strap section here. Like this strap is weirdly small when it comes to there. So anybody with, works out, has a slightly bigger chest, it's going to be a pretty tight fit, and you might not have as much like room to adjust it as you might like. Anyone who wants the option to wear the sling like down a little bit lower or off on the side, or likes to frequently like loosen it up and pull it back. Like this sling actually kind of has limited in how you can wear it as a sling, and we'll talk about that as well here too. And people who like to routinely carry devices like an iPad, you can fit an iPad mini or like a little Kindle in here, but it's not super comfortable, and I wouldn't really recommend it as a common use case for this bag here. And finally, anyone with more than just a few items to carry, like I've shown you, you can already kind of peep that there's a fairly small loadout inside of this sling overall, especially relative to some of the stuff I've shown in other slings in the past year. So this is not going to be the best sling for that. So next, let's talk about the materials, design, external structure of this bag. When it comes to materials, it's going to be no surprise either the typical bang-on, high-quality Evergoods type stuff, 840D ballistic nylon, 6 solution dye. So it's got a little bit more of a little bit of a different black than some of their previous generation bags, but still really high quality here. Zippers are all high quality reversed YKK zippers, these really simple but highly efficient Evergoods zipper pulls. This really great 3D mesh type breathable back panel that they first premiered in the 3.5 Mountain Hip Pack 3.5 line and have since spread across their line. I really like this. A little bit of overkill on a bag like this, but anyway. You got that contrast interior stitch gray lining that we've gotten used to from Evergoods. That's the panel that shows you the materials that the bag's made out of. And you got the simple standard Evergoods Velcro patch that you can use, logo patch that you can use to attach morale patches, etc. to the front. Now, when it comes to the structure, as you can see and as I've been telling you, it's fairly compact. It's just as smaller than many other slings in this size range or rated literage. Well, as you can see, it actually stands up fairly well on its own, which was a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting it to do that. And if you do shorten up the straps, and I mean, you're still gonna have a dangly mess. We'll talk about all that here in a second. But you can actually just kind of leave it on your desk and kind of zip, have it open like this, get stuff in and out of or whatever. Can almost treat it like a standing Cap 1 in some ways here. It has this long lateral curve, I guess would be the way I would call it. Like there's a bit of like just, especially when worn, you can kind of see how the shaping is. It's got these little kind of wings. It kind of curves a little bit to your body. That's keeping in what I think, is Evergoods' like philosophy of like really kind of having bags that conform to your back ergonomically. And it has some subtle additional shaping, like here on the back panel and on the bottom here. You can kind of see there's just a little bit of additional shaping here to give it some subtle curve. So it's definitely like a more thought out and I guess refined 3D patterning than like a simple fanny pack of yesteryear. Now, there are some downsides to that, which we'll talk about in terms of like how it affects the usable capacity of this main compartment, but you can already kind of see like that curve kind of really tightens this up here a bit. When you're wearing it, I found that it actually wears fairly small, in my opinion. And that's exacerbated, I think, by the limitations of how the strap is fairly short. Also something I'll talk about here. So you can see this is the straps at maximum extension. You can see this is as far out as it goes. And this is all the play that I have in the bag. I can't bring it out lower or anything like that. So wears fairly small, but very limited here. The short straps and the style of the bag and this kind of inbuilt curve and the way the weight is distributed, it kind of makes it almost need to be worn, in my opinion, kind of like high and tight. Maybe if you have like a smaller chest or your smaller body frame overall, you might have a little bit more play to let the bag dangle. But even then, I find that the way that the bag is built and distributed, you don't want it to be dangly. It's not going to be like, it doesn't sit, I don't think it would sit very nicely at the side. You can see it, you've got this, it almost enforces this cant to how the bag has to hang, so it's not going to hang super nice at your side. A challenge is the curved structure, which I already talked about here. Now, I do think that it's supposed to improve the ergonomics, but if we go back to wearing this bag, what I found is it's easy to open while it's worn, which is something that they pride themselves. But like I actually kind of found, like you see, it kind of pulls tight, and it's a little bit harder to get stuff in and out of, in my opinion, than in some others. I guess it's not terrible. You can kind of see I'm fighting with things that are sort of falling out, and then here, and then this back panel. Again, easy to open. I did find it tougher to get into this front zip part here because again, everything is sort of like you can see is buckling and not terrible, not the worst by any means, but it is sort of this trade-off I found between like that carry style, high and tight-ish, at least with the shorter straps for me, and the ease of access. You know, it might work, I think, probably a little bit better for folks who are a little bit smaller framed, perhaps. In contrast to the sling mode, I actually found it to be really surprisingly comfortable to wear as a hip pack. It reminded me a lot of like those running style hip packs that you wear, like when you're only carrying like, you know, gels and a phone and maybe your keys when you're running or something like that. In the small size and this kind of mesh, and sort of just like the overall experience was pretty good except for the strap dangle. So speaking of straps, let's talk about the load carriage system. And first of all, like we got to get the elephant out of the room here. Man, this is Dangle City. The straps don't have strap keepers, and that is absolutely a miss. Everybody's talked about it. That's because it's a miss. And it's also interesting because the Mountain Hip Pack 3.5, which they released last year or the year before, like they made a lot of, they spend a lot of time talking about how they like thoughtfully moved the buckles out to the side. They have built-in strap management on here on both ends. Like they clearly put a lot of time and thought into like this bag's strappage, and it worked okay for me. I certainly was not too short. And then the CAS2 came out, and it just was like one of the most primitive implementations of a strap that I've seen in a sling bag. And when you have like a small bag like this, I feel like the details really matter. Now, the materials are not bad, and the buckle is actually pretty good. I don't mind the center buckle. I know some people didn't like it so much. I didn't have an issue with it. I'm used to center buckle type sling bags. It's kind of low profile. You know, and it's all high quality hardware. So like there's nothing wrong with the material. It's just sort of like this thing is weird. And what's really interesting is if you look at their website, there's a picture where they show it worn as a hip bag, and you can see they subtly tucked the straps behind here like to avoid like the ugliness of the dangle thing. Now, that having been said, like, at least this is a problem that is easily rectified. You can add strap keepers fairly painlessly yourself because this also, you know, unbuckles in the middle. Like you don't need to like do anything fancy. You can just buy some elastic strap keeper, slide them over there, and then, you know, you're done. And I'm not against modding bags. I recently did a review of the Green Room 136 Metro Manga Prime that I had some modifications on that I did myself. So I'm not against that, but it's also just an odd miss for a company that usually has such a high level of refinement and execution, etc. Now, the other problem that maybe is a little bit harder to fix, in my opinion, is, as I previously alluded to, like this is actually fairly short strap-wise overall, and there's nothing. You can't replace the strap. You can't, there's no hidden excess tucked away anywhere. Like this is what you get. Now, Mountain does work out a little bit, but he also enjoys some cake, and I think it shows. And that having been said, I don't think like I'm a gigantically proportioned human being. So like, I don't know that I would qualify as an edge case. I think like there are plenty of people who are, you know, larger or have bigger chests than me. You can see, like, as I mentioned, like this is it. This is all I can do with this bag, and it's worn very high and tight, and there's no options to do anything else with it in terms of how I wear the bag. And that's really limiting and a little bit frustrating in practice when I was using this. I never had this problem with the Mountain Hip Pack 3.5. And as I kind of showed you earlier, it's a little bit hard to get things in and out of it. And if you have like a bigger chest, or you have a bigger frame, or you're a bigger person, this is probably not going to be working out that great for you. It's just going to be like really uncomfortably tight. It's a thing that I feel like, unfortunately, it limits maybe who this bag might work well for. It's got some really good points. That's a little bit of a shame. And it was such a kind of regrettable thing because like the straps are such a simple thing to get. I don't know if I would say it's a simple thing to get right. Like obviously a lot of thought goes into getting something so simple right. And Evergoods clearly knows how to do this. I just don't know that the way they decided for this bag works for me. And I don't think it's gonna work for a lot of people. Now, in contrast to the straps, the back panel I love. It is that same great breathable 3D mesh that they have on their PLC 20, on their Mountain Hip Pack 3.5, on the new V3 CPL 24s, the V2 CHZ 22s or whatever. It's great. I love it. It's a little bit of overkill for a bag like this, but it also makes it supremely comfortable when worn as a hip pack. And it is very like breathable. I don't know that you need a ton of breathability, especially for a bag that's a little bit so constrained like this and 2 liters rated. Like it's not, your bag is not going to get super sweaty. I also found it had the unintentional side effect of making this kind of slide really easily over any kind of clothing that I'm wearing, which is something that I like about this material. Which I guess helped a little bit because the bag was kind of, as I mentioned, it's a little bit tight. The strap is tight. So like I did find that gave me a little bit of extra movement as I was kind of like, going through the day or whatever. It didn't make me feel like I was being squeezed or constricted too much here. I will also say that there's some subtle shaping on this bag here. You can see like there's like this additional little kind of subtle panel here, a little bit of subtle shaping here, a little bit of subtle shaping here. Like it almost gives it this, like there's some interesting 3D-ness to the bag, and that's what I come to expect from Evergoods, like that. And I will talk about how that gives you a little bit of extra volume in the EDC pouch section here in a minute. But like that's what I expect from Evergoods, which is again such a contrast to this weird dangly strap here. Now that's really it for the load carry system. There's no other like handles or straps or whatever. I did find that it was easy to shorten these straps. And you can shorten them asymmetrically. So what I would do when I have this stored at home is I would shorten them asymmetrically, and I would just kind of hang it on a hero hook or something like that, like here. And then when I'm ready to go, you can pull it out and easily shorten or lengthen the strap. In my case, just really easy because I always wear it at the maximum extension, like this. Next, let's talk about access into the bag. There's 2 compartments. There's going to be this front compartment. There's going to be this back compartment. All of them access super easily with one hand. Evergoods, YKK, zipper, high quality stuff. Love these Evergood pulls. And I will also say it is easy to open and close. Open and close is different than get things in and out. Very easy to open and close, I found, the bag while it's worn. Well, this stuck a little bit, but usually just like this. If you do pull it all the way out here, we'll kind of catch on this corner. This one definitely one-handed operation. When worn, thanks to some of that patterning that I was talking about earlier. And Evergoods talks about this in one of their sling videos, that you could tell it's something they put a lot of thought into. Like, can you open the bag easily while it's worn, even with this sort of shaping going on? So next, let's talk about the rear pocket. And that's now we're looking at the back of the bag. I'm going to shorten up these straps a little bit here. So they're still going to dangle, but whatever. Now we're going to open up the back of the bag, single zipper here, reverse coiled YKK zipper. And this is kind of what I'm terming the EDC compartment here. And I call it that because it has a bunch of like different little organizational pockets here. Now this is a little bit tight in my experience. Like, again, some of the shaping helps a bit, but I found it a little bit tight. It works okay for my personal carry, which is fairly dialed in here. But anything, like if you have like a thicker wallet, or if you're putting things in here, you might need to like, if you have a thicker wallet, probably not gonna fit in here. It's gonna have to go in the main compartment, and that has other restraints here. If you're putting things in here, like let's say a notebook or like a passport or something like that, you're gonna probably wanna take it out of its cover. If you have a max size phone, this is just a regular iPhone 13 Pro, but a max size phone will fit, but just barely. And if you have any kind of thicker cover on it, it's not gonna fit. It's not pleasant even without it, without a cover on there. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. It is fairly tight in here. Now, the back pocket area, EDC pocket area, has pockets on both sides, and it has sort of like this central area here. So let's talk about it in this order. So this is the back of the bag, this is the front of the bag, and there's just 2 simple pockets here. One, I have here my Bellroy Apex wallet, and that just fits in this compartment here. And then one, I have an iPhone 13 Pro. Now, these pockets, if I can show you, don't have any stretch, they're just simple elastic, but one thing that is nice is there's a little bit of gusseting at the bottom of each pocket, a little bit of pleating that helps it kind of, you can see it kind of does expand out just a little bit here. So that kind of helps counteract the lack of stretch in here. Now, you're kind of, this works well, as I said, for my knees. Again, I'll flip the bag around here. You're looking at this. This is the side worn against your body. This is a 13 Pro, and you can see it fits in there fairly easily. The smooth nylon lets it slide in and out, even with like a silicone case. This is not a silicone case, but even with that. A Pro, like a Max phone, will fit just barely, but it's really, really tight, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, it sort of depends on your personal carry. This area happens to fit perfectly for my Bellroy Apex wallet, but if you get any kind of thicker wallet or like non-slim wallet, it's not going to fit in there. There's a main area in here which has a little bit of space. You can see there's a little bit of like a floor here at the bottom, like a little bit of extra dimension there. You can stick stuff in there. I've got just a little coin pouch in there. You could put like your phone in there if it doesn't fit in this main pocket, as long as you don't have anything too bulky in here. What I don't think is going to work out is if you put like a big bulky wallet in here and then try to like jam your phone in here. Like, you're going to find that you're going to have problems when you kind of wear the bag, especially if it's, you know, kind of worn close to your body, because like the strap has that maximum extension. So now there's the other side of the bag. This is the front of the bag, back of the bag of the main EDC part. And this is the same pocket style as the Cap 1 here. So you're going to see a split kind of dual internal compartments here, single zip here, and that same kind of 3D mesh here, or same kind of mesh here. Opens with a single smaller zip here into 3 compartments. One front mesh compartment here, one front mesh compartment here, and then one long compartment kind of subdivided with a non-meshy interior. The whole thing, you know, opens and closes like this. For the most part, I found I didn't have too many problems with this zipper intruding with this zipper too much. Sometimes when I was doing it, when it was worn and it was kind of tight, I would have this kind of, I was kind of getting a little bit messier. They do have some subtle shaping here, some subtle kind of like, there's a little bit of like extra, just, I don't know, usually the zipper track's clear. Anyway, so this opens with a single zip in there, and then here's what I've got in this pocket here. On this side here, I have some hand sanitizer and some chapstick, and that's it. And then on this side, I have some MW08, Master Dynamic MW08 Sports. And then in this main back compartment, I have some flat things like some masks and a little wiping cloth for like my phone or an iPad or something like that. And that's, you can see, really it here. Now, in the Cap 1 line, there is actually a lot of like, this is the Cap 1 here. In the Cap 1 line, there's actually a lot of like, you can see like space in these pockets. Plus there's a sliding magnet, so you can kind of like overstuff this to a surprising amount. And that helps make these pockets a lot more usable because even though they're fairly flat, you can, especially this back one, you can really puff it out like this. When you take that and we put it into a bag, so I talked about this in the PLC 20 review that I did recently. If you put it in something like this, you do have some space. Like obviously it's not like completely flat. Like the items you put in here don't have to be completely flat. These are, for example, not completely flat. But then this back area really starts to push into the sling area, and there's not as much play in there. In the main sling compartment area, there's not as much play in there as you might expect. So you kind of have to, like, it really flexes into here a lot. And I found that that's not exactly independent volume, right? Because then you have these two compartments fighting with each other as opposed to on the Cap 1 where it just expands outward. Overall, like, they are more usable, I would say, on this sling, the CAS2, than they were on the PLC 20, but not as usable as I found them in the Cap 1. Anyway, I like that there's, like, you know, little bits of organization here. I think you can fit some reasonably small items, or some reasonably slightly, you know, non-flat items in here, but obviously nothing super huge and bulky because this overall compartment gets pretty tight. And again, when you're wearing it high and tight across your body, like, access to this can be a little bit, you know, fussy. So next, let's talk about the main compartment here. Opens up in here, and it's just a single large unadorned dump compartment with the only kind of distinguishing mark being this red key leash here. So let me show you what I've got in here. I've got a Bellroy note taker with a pen in there and the field notes in there. I've got a little granite gear pouch with some random little EDC things, lighter, flashlight, etc. Made out of like silk nylon. I've got a Sony RX100 Mark VII, and then I've got just my keys here, which we'll put off to the side. And that's really it inside of this. Oh, sorry, that's not. And then I have like some cough drops in case I need cough drops. And that's really it in terms of this. You could already see here what I'm talking about, like that internal compartment really pushes into here, but there's not like a ton of independent dimension because it's fighting with this. That is, so you can see it's kind of bulging there. And then it's exacerbated when you put the bag on like this, the bulge is exacerbated. And that's where you get this, you know, as I mentioned, like fighting to load things in here because it actually gets pretty tight. I don't have the keys in there yet either. And you can see it's kind of already kind of tight and fighting for kind of space a little bit here. If you don't have the back pockets filled up as much, you know, then it's obviously going to be, I think, a little bit of a better experience for you in this main one here. But overall, I just kind of, I appreciated having this larger area here. I found how much usable space there was. It really depends on how loose the straps are. Not an option if you got a bigger chest, and then also like how much stuff you have in this back compartment here. Now, the single pop of red key clip, standard Evergoods stuff. I like it, good key clip in here, but it poses a problem, which is if you put your keys in there, like I'm going to here, then you don't want to put something delicate like a camera in here because your keys are going to do bad things to it. And in the Mountain Hip Pack, I think 3.5, they had the keys in the back area, which created other problems because there wasn't a ton of space back there. So I'm glad that they moved it in here in terms of space area, or space usage, excuse me. But you have to be really careful about what you load in here. So for example, when I do carry the camera in there, like I put like something soft between the keys and the camera, or I try and like, you know, protect it with like the notebook or whatever, which is the kind of overhead that you don't really particularly, you know, want to have to think about or fuss around, especially when it's tight and hard to kind of like stuff things in and out. So I find myself like when I'm carrying a camera, something delicate, I'm taking the bag off and carefully arranging things on the desk in front of me before I put it back on, etc. Not the best experience. That's kind of why I say like this area is a little bit fussier, or this bag is less refined or thought out than I'm used to from Evergoods. Now, a common question that people have is like, what can you fit any devices in here? So this is an iPad mini 6 with an Apple Pencil on there, and you can see you can sort of, I've got like a normal EDC loadout in the back. You can sort of get it in there. You can see it's bulging out at the top here, so it's not like the super, you know, like the most, you know, it doesn't look great. But it is possible, of course, if you have more stuff in here, like once you get your keys in here, that's really all you're gonna be able to fit in there. Maybe like a little flat notebook without a cover or something like that. You can also fit like a small Kindle, probably not the Oasis, but like the Paperwhite or whatever. You can also fit a slightly larger camera. This is an RX100 Mark 7, as I mentioned, but also if you didn't have so much stuff in the back here, you can, I can confirm, cram like a Leica Q2 in here, but it's not pleasant at all. So, like I said, I think carrying devices like that are going to be something that you do at best in a pinch with a bag like this, but it is possible, especially if you have less stuff in the back compartment. A few other things that people often wonder will fit in here. Well, will a water bottle fit in here? Here's a 500 milliliter water bottle. That will fit in here with some, you know, some amount of like discomfort, but it will fit and it's capable of being worn. Again, depending on what you have in the back there, it fits in there. Probably anything larger than that, you're gonna have trouble. And then also, I think people wonder if you can fit like a little jacket in here. This is gonna be a phone wear, I forget, like one of their windbreakers or whatever, I forget what it's called. This fairly, you can see it's fairly insubstantial. This will obviously fit in there. You can fit like an Arc'teryx Atom SL in here as well, but it's a really tight fit because that's a little bit of a larger thing, but something light like this will also fit. And so really that kind of is the overview of this bag. I like it for what it is. I like its small, compact size. I like that it has like some fairly decent organization in the back. I don't like the strap thing. It's really such an obvious and painful miss. And that's what prevents this from being like my number one, like small 2-liter like sling. I mean, that's not the only thing, but that's one of the things that I think keeps this from even being like in my favorite list of smaller slings in here. But I do think it's actually a pretty, you know, good urban use type sling, especially if you're a fan of Evergoods. So, if you are in the market for a bag like this, what are some other bags that you might want to consider? Well, first and foremost, obviously, if you want the same thing but just bigger, it's going to be the Mountain Hip Pack 3.5. I've shown this several times throughout this video, so I won't belabor this too much here. This is going to be a little bit more like outdoorsy oriented. It's definitely a much larger bag as I've previously shown you. I actually don't think the back panel organization is as well thought out as the one on the CAS2, to be honest with you. You do have an extra additional interior zipper pocket on the main compartment, a little bit more space in the main compartment. You can see this one's gotten some love. You do have compression straps on the side here to kind of like help give it a little bit tighter wear on the body. And it does have this theoretical pass-through that you can kind of like run a jacket or a wind shell through there. I didn't find that to be very useful. Strap management is going to be far superior on this bag versus the CAS2. So another thing to keep in mind. This one is also theoretically, well, I mean, it's called the hip pouch, so it is actually intended to be worn even more directly as a hip pouch than a sling. If we're looking for 2-liter EDC urban use bags, I've already done a full review of the Air City Sling V2, one of my favorite slings, 2.5 liters, so slightly larger rated literage than this one. Very squarely an urban use oriented type smaller sling, far superior organization to this one. Different aesthetic, as you can kind of see, like this one's a little bit square. You know, built-in compression straps, far superior main strap system, a little bit of a carry thing. Also does this, well, also does the stand-up thing when it's loaded out. You can tuck away the straps inside of here if you want to just use it more like a little, you know, like clutch almost or whatever. I really like this bag. I've done a full review of it on my channel before. It's also available in more colors and different material ways here. And it's, I believe, maybe the only downside might be that it's a little bit denser sometimes. Like if you really pack it as like this dense little cuboid, but overall I really, really like this bag. If you're a fan of the general style of this bag and you want something kind of in the same general aesthetic, this is the Mystery Ranch Forager Hip Pack. Very similar size range, 2.5 liters. You can see the clear parallels here. I think that you can also see the difference in approach, like just superior materials, patterning, just kind of refinement for the most part. In the Evergoods bags, Mystery Ranch is going to be simpler, more common fabrics. You could, for example, compare the back mesh, super high-tech mesh here, and then like this very rough, simple, common air mesh here. Very different kind of approaches between this bag, but this one's still very durable. It's still very effective, very easy to use, and you can kind of see it's got a very similar kind of like hip pack slash sling looking aesthetic here. It doesn't have as much organization, but it has enough, I think, for like a simple load out here. Available in a variety of fabrics and colorways and 2 different sizes here too. So another thing, it is also like 1/3 the price, so another thing to kind of consider. And finally, because I did mention that this thing can be worn as a hip pack, and it reminds me a little bit of like, you know, those running use, like, you know, hip pouches. I wanted to just do something kind of ridiculous. This is the Arc'teryx Valence Monad hip pouch. It's ridiculous. I have such a soft spot in my heart for ridiculous bags like this, where they clearly let some designer live out his or her dream without any concerns about practicality or cost effectiveness, or even what normal humans with jobs who work hard for their money might think about these things. This thing is like, so if you know Valence and you know the Monad line or whatever, like what they do is, you know, they take those outdoor inspired materials and they try and like reinterpret them into like bags and stuff that they charge a ridiculous amount of money for. Look, it's like if you took the hip pack aspect of the CAS2 and the minimalist, limited, like undertones of this, and you just took it to the extreme, and then you cranked it up and you did it in a cool like Gore-Tex fabric because reasons, and then you made a little hip pouch for running. That's what this is. You can hold like a wallet in there. That's it. There is like 2 little stretch thing that you put a gel in here on the side there, and like in the world's most impractical little tiny key leash here. So if you have really tiny keys in there, and then you wear this as like a hip pouch or a lumbar pack if you, in the cool thing, vernacular. It's got this little, you know, like stretchy, you know, that's actually fairly comfortable, to be honest with you. Strap, low profile buckle there, and then that's what this thing is. And it's, I do remember how much it is. It was way too much money. And so really that is it. If you have any questions about this bag, go ahead and leave those in the comments below, and if I can, I will answer them. If you have any bags you would like me to review, go ahead and leave those in the comments below, and if I own them, I will review them. Thank you very much.